Article 7, which focused on functionalism in American psychology. Functionalism aims at studying how the mind and behavior help in adapting to the environment. The research tool used is whatever worked. This dominated American psychological science in the 20th century, which was mentioned in most psychology history books, which got about 10 pages. This was said to be influenced by the Darwin theory of evolution by natural selection and was in a long-standing debate with structuralism. William James was the school of functionalism's primary inspiration, while John Dewey and James Roman Angell are named the chief proponents. The article's thoughts on functionalism were that they argue the image of functionalism is fundamentally flawed and argues that the Darwin-inspired rise of functionalism in the 1890s was the first revolution in American psychology. A little bit about structuralism is that it aims at studying elements of the mind, and their research tool is introspection. This was led by Edward Bradford Titchener. Although he was well respected, his structuralism rarely established a self-sustaining settlement anywhere apart from Ithaca. American Psychology was an informal band of intellects in Cambridge, Massachusetts in January 1872 that were keen to discuss controversial scientific and philosophical issues of the day. John Watson and the Behaviorist Revolution were a critical pivot point in this. The members included William James, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., who was the son of the Harvard professor, who went on to be a justice on the Supreme Court, and Charles Sanders Peirce, who was also a son of a Harvard professor, who was eventually a prodigy philosopher and scientist. These group of people called themselves the Metaphysical Club, and they were the primary crucible for the development of American psychology, which was at Johns Hopkins University. Peirce became the first American experimental psychologist and published an article. Chauncey Wright led Cambridge Salon and was a vocal advocate for a theory of natural selection, which caught the attention of Darwin. Darwin was so impressed with him that he arranged to have Wright's review reprinted in England, where they met. The Metaphysical Club eventually broke up, and the youngest members began their careers. James was invited to teach at Harvard, where he published a review. And then in September of 1875, Wright suffered a stroke and died at age 45. Other important people that were mentioned in this article was G. Stanley Hall, whose theoretical contributions were deeply steeped in the evolutionary theory. The expertise he brought was what he gained in the physiology labs of Berlin. He won the coveted Hopkins professorship, and then he established the first psychology research lab in the U.S. Peirce published an important psychophysical research with his student Joseph Jastrow. He also brought his scientific and logical talents to the table. His most famous student, though, was John Dewey, who brought his evolutionary ideas to educational theory. Peirce was eventually let go due to a scandal involving personal affairs, though. This was basically what summed up Article 7.